Welcome back to another edition of Let's Draw. I'm your host BeeJayDeL, and in today's video, I'm gonna show you how you can draw this cute little mummy from start to finish using the iPad in Procreate. It's all in real time too, so you can see every single step along the way. Also, if you follow along with any of my videos, make sure you share your work online. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, tag me at BeeJayDeL for your chance to see your artwork featured in one of my upcoming videos, like the people that you see here that followed along with the last Halloween video for the koala. I want to take a second to apologize because I know videos, they've been kind of sporadic lately, but there's a reason for that. I've been working on a top secret project for the past year and a half, and the past few months, everything's kind of come together, and hopefully in the next few weeks, I can announce it. We're gonna launch it, so stay tuned for that. But today, it's all about the mummy, so let's get started. All right guys, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Starting out, I'm using a 3000 by 3000 300 DPI canvas. It's an RGB canvas. For my brush, I'm going to be using my cartooning brush set, and we'll start out using the cartoon sketch pencil to begin with. And for my color palette, once again, I've got this pre-made, so if you want to download the exact same colors that I'm using in today's video, you can find that for free on my website, BeeJayDeL.com. Underneath the YouTube reference materials page, there's also a video at the top of the page, kind of walks you through how to install a palette in Procreate if you've never done it before. So starting out then, we're going to use the blue color to do our sketch. So we'll select that and we'll go ahead and get started. Now with this mummy, once again, just like I always do, just basic shapes to start out. So we'll do a pretty big oval up here for the head. And I kind of want him to be looking to the side, so a 3/4 perspective. So if you need help kind of visualizing that, we will just go ahead and do a center line here that's kind of curved, kind of show where that is. Then a line across here, kind of see where the center part of the eyes are going to go there. Moving down to the body then, once again, the center line is going to kind of continue down into the body, so we can bring that down at a curve. And then we'll bring his back around and then back up to the front here. It's kind of like a lima bean shape for that. Continue that down here into the legs next. So kind of following this line as it curves, we'll bring that down here. And then kind of forward there for the sole of the foot. And then back and around for the top of the foot. And a little line up there for the leg. Now this leg here, we'll kind of have it kind of sticking out. So almost like a walk look. So if we bring down a couple of diagonal lines there for that foot to be sticking out or the leg to be sticking out, and then we can start bringing the foot around here. We'll kind of do an oval here for the bottom of the foot. And bring around the top of the foot into there. Just like that. And now for the arms, kind of have these swinging, kind of like that walking motion. So once again, kind of like a lima bean shape here for that arm. And then another one here for this arm. Just like that. For the fingers then, we can go ahead and start bringing those around. So on this side, we'll start to bring the first finger here. And in the middle, we'll just do 3 fingers and then a thumb. And then this finger into the thumb. And then back into the arm. Same thing over here. Bring the thumb up here from the side. This is going to kind of curve around into that index finger, into the middle finger here, and then the third finger there. And we'll kind of clean these up a little bit more when we go in to actually do the inking. This stage of everything, I like to keep everything really sketchy, and I don't worry about making sure everything is perfect right now. So now we've got that, we can kind of work on the face. So of course with this being a mummy, we need the center part kind of open. So we'll start with the bandages here. Kind of open that up. Just a couple of curved lines here. So we've got kind of this curved diamond shape there. And then for the eyes, we'll have these kind of half hidden by that bandage as it comes down. Just like that. Get the pupils in there. Have one here kind of towards that center. And we'll have the other one kind of further back, so he's kind of looking at the viewer here. Just like that. And let's get a mouth in there too. So we'll bring in kind of the smile line here off to the side, back into the top and back down. Have a couple of teeth here. I'm going to bring this line further down so we've got more room for the mouth here. A tooth here, and then do another tooth here. Kind of bring that back in so we can fill this in so you can kind of see what we're looking at there. All right, looks good. And from here, of course, we need to do the lines eventually for the wrap of the mummy. We can kind of rough those in just wherever you want. We can kind of do some overlapping as we go. Same thing here with the body. We'll just kind of get those thrown in around here. Kind of going one way and then the other, so we have some interesting overlaps there. Continue that down into the leg and the foot. I'm just doing that really quick just because we're not going to use those exactly like that, but it gives us a good idea where they need to be at. And then to make him a little bit more interesting, maybe have, say on the back side here, kind of have one of his bandages coming down. Just like that. And then maybe another one trailing off his foot back here. Kind of have the points sticking up here. Then back in towards his foot and his leg. All right, so there we go. That's going to be our sketch. Just something really basic and really quick. And then this next part, once we get into the inking, we can kind of start to finalize it and make it look a little bit better. So let's work on that next. So we're going to come up here then to the layers menu, and I'm going to hit the plus button here for a new layer. That's going to be our inks layer. And then we're going to draw on top of the sketch. For the sketch, I'm going to hit the N for blend mode. That brings up this menu. We'll drop the opacity of this just a little bit, down to about half. I want to be able to see it, but I don't want it to be too dark that it kind of takes away focus from what we're doing on the inks layer. All right, so now we're on layer 2, that new layer we made. I'm going to come up here and grab the next color. I've got this kind of dark brown. So instead of doing just a super dark black for this, we'll do this kind of dark brown. And then we'll start doing our inks. Now, usually this is where I talk about doing different line weights. For this one, because there are so many lines inside of the mummy itself and the wrapping, I think I'm just gonna keep a pretty consistent line weight throughout the whole thing on the outside. And then we'll use smaller, thinner lines on the inside just so those don't take away from what we're doing with the outlines. So we're gonna keep pretty much basically a solid line weight throughout. So I need to switch my brush though. So we're going to come back up here to the cartooning set. I'm going to switch over to the standard inker streamline. And we'll start with the head here. And just get an oval in here for the head. Just letting go to lock it in. I'm going to grab the arrow here and bring it in just a little bit using freeform. So it lines up just a little bit better to where I had it. All right, and from there, I'm just gonna keep working on the body itself. So we'll come down here to the arm and we'll start pulling these lines down. Now with the hands, I like to break up the fingers here with just kind of tapered line there and pull the fingers off of that one, just like that. Get the thumb in there, and back up to the body. Start on the leg here now. Pull that line down and around. And back up. And this is one thing I've talked about before in my videos, but if you're new, the lines with the sketch layer, they are really just going to be kind of a suggestion of where everything goes. I don't try to make sure they're 100% exact all of the time. With the head, I changed it a little bit there to get it closer, but with the rest of it, as long as it's in the general area of where I'm shooting for, I'm okay with it. I don't like to worry about it too much because I think your lines start to look a little bit too mechanical. If you worry about it, you lose some of that just kind of natural flow and flair to the lines. So keep that in mind as you're going through. Kind of add the fingers here across using that same technique. Bringing that arm back down. And then we'll go ahead and work on the head up here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the lines here for that wrap that's going to break open the face here. So we'll get these lines in there. And that allows us to know exactly where we need to be for everything else. I need to bring this one down further though because of that mouth. We did move that line. We'll connect this. All right, looks good. So now on to the eyes. I'm going to make these just a little bit heavier so they stand out from those other lines that we have for the wraps. There we go. Get the pupils in here. I want to make sure that those kind of have the same flow from left to right so they look like they belong to the same character. Just drag and drop those in there. Now for the mouth here. Just kind of following these lines around. We get the teeth in there. I'll probably do some tapered lines in here for the teeth just to give them a little bit more texture and character there. Bring the mouth down. And let's see, probably pull in some tapered lines here around the eyes just to kind of give those a little bit of bags around them. Just like that. And this is where on the face I'll just add in some dots like this just so we have a little bit of that texture and makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. So there we go. And now we're just ready to go on to the inside here. I'm going to save these bandages for last. So once again, we want to use a little bit of a lighter line here, not as heavy as the outline, so that we can still tell where the outline's at. And it's up to you where you want to put these. You can follow along, or if you just want to select some fun places to have them drop, it's totally up to you. I just like to have some overlapping ones like this. So they're kind of going in some different directions. Key here is not to get too confused as far as lines go here, touching what we've already done with the way that foot curves. I'm going to make sure that that curve doesn't get lost in the bandages. All right, I think that is pretty good. We'll get this arm here, and then we'll move on to those outside bandages. Which, once again, since those are on the outside, we will go ahead and have those be a little bit thicker. There we go. And then back to a thicker line here. You can see just doing a little jut in and out in certain places, just so it's not a perfect straight line and it kind of, once again, has a little bit more character to it. Some overlaps there too. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead then. We're gonna come up here to the layers menu and turn off the sketch layer so we can see what we're left with on our inks layer. And there we go. So we're done with the inks. So far going pretty quick here. So now it's time to move on to the color flats. So to begin the color flats, let's go ahead back up to layers. We're gonna make a new layer and we're gonna drag this down underneath layer 2. Layer 2 is our inks. We'll go back up to layer 2 and we're gonna set this as reference. So this is gonna allow us to drag and drop our colors onto this layer 3 using layer 2 as kind of a guide saying where they should go. Keeps them on a separate layer so it avoids any lines hitting or colors hitting the lines, and it's gonna help us when we go in to do the shadows. So back to layer 3 now, and we're gonna make a couple of different color flats layers, I think, just to make it a little bit easier once we go back in and add in shadows here. I'm gonna choose the yellow first. We'll use that for the eyes. Drop those in. Then I've got orange next. We're just gonna add in some curves here. So we've got a little bit of a shadow going on in the eyes. We'll get that filled in. Next up with the colors, we've got the darker red here. And throw that into the mouth there. And then an even darker red here. We'll use that around the back to kind of add in a shadow and some depth here to this. Now usually I save the shadows for last, but because we're going to do this one a little bit different, we're just going to do these as we go just because there's only going to be a few areas of color in this because there's so much of this bandage area. All right, now that we've got that, once again back up to our colors. We've got white next. For this, I want to add in some highlights here on the eyes. So we've got some reflections. I want it to go over top of our inks though. So we're going to go back up to that layer 2, that reference layer that our inks are on. And then we'll just draw in some ovals here. So we've got some highlights there in the eyes. Just like that. All right, back up to our color palette then. Next up, we have the color for the bandages. So with this, we're gonna go ahead and start a new layer now. So we go down to layer 3, hit the plus button, we've got a new layer. And as I drop this first color in, I'm also gonna hit continue filling with recolor up here, and it brings up right here, you can see it, this cursor. And if we just drop in the color by touching these areas, we can quickly fill in just by clicking on each of these areas rather than dragging and dropping the color in every single time. Saves a ton of time. Makes it super easy. You just want to make sure you don't hit the lines. If you hit the lines, it's going to add kind of a jagged outline to those, and we don't want to do that. So make sure you're hitting inside those open areas. All right, now we're going to hit the brush to kind of lock it in there. And then coming back up then to our color palette, we've got this blue gray here. We're going to use that for the skin or the part underneath the bandages there. And we'll do this once again on another layer. So let's go down to our eyes layer. Actually, let's go below our eyes layer here and let's make a new layer. We'll drag and drop that in. And then we can kind of go back up here to our color palette because we've got to do the teeth here. So if we switch back to the color for the bandages, we can go ahead and just do this on the bandage layer too. It's far enough away that it won't hurt when we go in to do the shading. Okay, so there we go. Our color flats are done. We've got a little bit of the highlights and shadows going on, but the majority are still to come, and that's the next step. So to do this, to add the shadows, and I think mostly we're just gonna add shadows on this, with it being this kind of off-white color for the mummy bandages, we're not gonna have a lot of opportunity to do highlights. So we're just gonna worry about shadows today on this one. So let's do those first on the bandages. We're gonna make a new layer on top of our layer 4, which is our bandage color flats. Then we're gonna tap this and we're gonna set this to clipping mask. So this is gonna allow us to color in on layer 6. It's only gonna show up on the area that's colored in on layer 4. So we're not gonna go over top down here with the eyes or the skin. We're not gonna go here to the background. It's only gonna show up on this layer. That being said then, back up to our color flats, and we're gonna choose the color next to the off-white. It's a brownish color. And I think I'm gonna have the light source coming from this direction, so we'll have our shadows kind of fall over here. So if I start to bring down a line here, we'll have our shadows kind of curve that way. Now for here, I'm gonna go ahead and fill in the foot down here completely, because that's going to be furthest away from that light source. And then I'm going to start to bring in some tapered curved lines here underneath and on the back side of the bandages. So like this here is going to give off a little bit of a shadow there. This one here is going to be underneath that top one, so it's going to give off a little bit of a shadow there. Continue the shadow here around. You'll see I'm just following the direction that those lines are going. Down underneath the neck, we'll have one that kind of wraps down into the arm here. You can pull the underside down and around here to the fingers. Again, hitting that back side of those bandages. Leg down here, around the belly, on the bottom side of the leg, and then on the back side of those bandages again. Just like that. Hit the underside of these. And I think I'm gonna pull this around the belly as well here. Bottom side of this belly part into the leg. And kind of fine tune that with the eraser there to have it meet up just a little bit better. As you can see too right now, I'm not zooming in and out because I know it's really annoying in the videos if I do it too much. I really urge you though, as you are doing the work, zoom in and out on your canvas as much as possible. I always say if it looks good super close up, it's gonna look good further away too. So if you can get in there and get really tight to make sure that you've got the lines perfect and make sure everything meets up, I say do it. Just because I'm not doing it here, it's honestly for your benefit. But at home, zoom away. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Get a little bit here on this back side and underneath. And then down and around this backside of the bandage that comes from that head part. And doing some lines like that with the shadows kind of drives it home even more that there's those folds and creases. Speaking of the folds and creases too, now that we've got those shadows, if we want to pull in some tapered lines like this, just really thin, we can do that as well, just so it has more of that crease look to it. And we've got those folds in there. So you can pull these around just wherever you feel like they should be. And for these tapered lines, that's why I'm using the standard Inker Streamline. I'm starting out with a little bit harder pressure and then letting up and lifting up as I get to that tapered line. So if you have this brush and you're not getting those tapered lines, it just takes practice. You just kind of have to feel where you should be pressing harder and where you should be letting up pressure. And it's really just kind of a flick of the stroke of the pen like that. Not so much a flick of the wrist. I use, and I've talked about this before in videos too, I use a technique drawing from my shoulder. It makes it a lot more control based than just using your wrist. So I can link that down in the description below too, so you can check out that video. All right, and also my pressure settings in Procreate, they're all default. I get that question all the time. People think there's a trick there. There's not. I use the default pressure settings. So, all right, there we go. We're done with the mummy wrap. So let's go ahead then and switch over to this darker blue for the face now. That's gonna be the last part that we have to do. We need to come down to the face, however. So layer 5. And we're gonna make a new layer on top of this one. We're gonna tap that one and once again set that to clipping mask. So it's the same technique that we used previously. And we're just gonna bring in some shadow here underneath where that bandage wraps around the head. We'll kind of follow that line that we used there in the back on the bandages. Come down underneath the eye here into that bag. Just like that. A little bit around the mouth there. And I'll pull just a tad bit here with that curve. All right. Then finally, let's get the teeth here real quick. So back to the brown color that we used for the shadow. And we have the teeth on that same layer as the wraps. So we'll go back to that layer 6 here. Just get the shadow in here on the teeth. Okay, so that's gonna be pretty much it for our mummy. Let's do a quick background here, nothing too fancy. So coming up here to our layers menu, let's turn off reference on layer 2. So if we tap that, turn reference off. We're gonna come down to layer 1 now and we'll make a new layer here. And for the background, let's just use that same color that we used for the mummy's skin. We'll just drop that into the background. And then back up to our layers menu. Let's make a new layer here. Whoops. For the shadow, we'll do a drop shadow. And using this darker blue here, we'll just kind of bring an oval around from the base of that foot. Back around like that. And probably a little bit here underneath that bandage as well. And then finally, I think it needs something else. Let's go back below that layer we just did, layer 8. Make a new layer here. And then back to our color palette, I'm going to choose this yellow color. And we'll just do kind of like just a geometric shape back here. Just so he's got kind of a frame behind him. Just to finish it out there. And then last but not least, I just need to sign this and we will be done. All right, put my pencil away here. And there we go, a cute little mummy just right before Halloween. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, do me a favor, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and hit that bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. And like I said at the beginning of the video too, if you guys take part in any of these tutorials, if you follow along and make a design based on one of my videos, definitely share it online. So if you're on Instagram or Twitter, post it on there and tag me at BeeJayDeL for your chance to possibly see your design featured in one of my upcoming videos. That's it for me today. Like I said too, there's some big news coming up, which I will hopefully be able to share in the next few weeks. We'll kind of explain where I've been at, why videos have been only kind of few and far between over the last few months. So I look forward to sharing all that with you guys soon. As for me, I can also be found online, BeeJayDeL.com. So that's it for today. Until next time, keep creating.